Hello and welcome to WarrenThornton.com. Hello and welcome to WarrenThornton.com. Now, if you're watching us live on Rumble, you're watching us live on Kick, that's fantastic. If you come across to WarrenThornton.com or you come across indeed to Patreon, if you just go to Patreon, you type in Warren Thornton, you will find our channel and you will be able to join. Now, on November the 10th, we will be not doing any more free streaming because there's a lot of people on there. And if you want full access, obviously you have to sign up to the full access. If you haven't done that, I know quite a lot of you have. If you haven't done that, please do so, because by the end of the weekend, you won't be able to access any free content for the simple fact that there are many, many people that Zoom it, and then what they do is they start a new, shall we say, a new 7-day trial and everything else. So it is one of those, if you want to watch the show. If we want to keep the lights on because the prices are going up, and there's other interference as well to stop us getting the truth out to you. And we're going to start with a bit of that interference. Now, during the course of today, our X account was taken down. Now, we know full well that X is infiltrated by many Ukrainian bots, should we say, and NATO are literally paid by the National Endowment for Democracy, USAID. They get all that money from that, but they're literally funded, as the National Endowment for Democracy are, by the CIA. And of course, the CIA very much don't want the truth about Ukraine or Israel getting out there. And of course, that's one of the main reasons. Now, does X have infiltrators? It had infiltrators before. Elon Musk bought it, and of course, there were FBI and CIA operatives working inside X and making sure that accounts that were telling the truth got shut down. That is still the case. There are still people there. It is not the free platform that everybody thinks it is. So just to let you know, we've had to open up another X account where we can stream on. Obviously, until we get the live stream all sorted out, we will have to upload it for you, but you won't miss anything. But this is the new account that we have. Please like and share, repost, as they say. Come and join us. Come and say hello. And of course, as I say, this is the new area that, of course, we will be inhabiting from now on. You can find the first hour of our videos and many, many stories on there. We will not be engaging with any trolls whatsoever. Any trolls on that platform, because what they do is try and get engagement from you, and then literally if you engage with them, they mass report it with these bots, and of course they get the bots to mass report it, and then the people, or shall we say the friendly people towards them, will take it down. They don't get taken down at all. So X is not quite the free platform you think. So as I say, please go across and have a look at WarrenThornton.com. You can't miss it. If you type in @ and then the @ symbol and then Warren T Show, all one word, really, really simple, very, very easy to find. Now, we always have a sort of a plan, and a friend of ours has a channel that we're friends with, and should anything happen, the good old Wayne Kurz, the ghost of a journo, he is somebody that you should follow. I'm not going to say any more than that, but he's somebody that you should follow just in case something goes horribly, horribly wrong at a later date. We always like to have a contingency plan for you out there so that you can have access to everything that's going on. Now, people would turn around and go and say, this is not true, is it? This can't be. It's a load of nonsense. The CIA and everything else, they don't infiltrate platforms, and they don't get lots and lots of bots and lots of, shall we say, multimedia to stop you. Well, the CIA have been at this for years. Have a look at this.
At any rate, this analysis that we made of the CIA's media operations disclosed, among other things, that they deliver through CIA couriers ready to print or ready to broadcast news, and I put that in inverted commas, which is used by the media. And this is created by the CIA.
How often does the CIA manipulate the media in this way, plant stories, get their views in the media? Is this fairly common as a modus operandi for the CIA?
It goes beyond your, in the course of the past 30 years, it goes beyond your wildest imagination, the extent to which the CIA has gone to manipulate public opinion. If you include the MH Chaos program, which was $1 billion program of setting up proprietary companies, setting up student organizations so they could draw radical students in and do every kind of duplicitous manipulation of national student movements, press, propaganda, labor, extensive formation of labor unions, funding of major labor unions, with the objective essentially of manipulating the mind and attitudes of workers throughout the nation and the world.
A whole range of areas wherein the CIA provides briefings to selected journalists, and there are numerous cases where the CIA has, for example, published books, and several thousand books were published in English by the CIA, and this is documented in the Church Committee report. They set up 250 news services and wire services, some of which, not all, but some of which are still in the pocket of the CIA. And I think it's only fair to say that even some journalists who don't realize, there are some who are witting, but there are also some who do not realize that they're being targeted by the CIA when they come home from a trip overseas. They might talk to somebody and they don't realize, at least right away, who they're talking to, and then it turns out that they've been the source of information which was used by the CIA.
So there we are. So just in case you thought that wasn't the case, we wanted to play you that. And of course, there's lots and lots of stuff that we talk about. Now, we're going to give you an example. Funded by USAID, funded also by the British Foreign and Commonwealth Development Office, is this guy here. Will Miller is a nice name that they use for various, shall we say, funding operations. But Will Stewart is a name that you will see on many, many articles that are completely false. Now, murder on the front line, horror as Putin's kamikaze drones blow up elderly civilians, waving white flag and walking dog in a brazen war crime. Very simply, Ukrainian military have claimed, so they'll always say they have claimed, because they don't want to get completely banned for it. The strikes were part of a false flag operation by Russia. It was very simply two, shall we say, Ukrainians were walking to freedom. And of course, when they were walking to freedom, the Ukrainian drones, they were behind the Russian lines, they were walking towards the Russian lines, and they were being guided by a Russian drone, and a Ukrainian drone came out of nowhere. Two Ukrainian drones operated by Ukrainian operators, it's been confirmed by many, many sources, and blew them up. But that doesn't stop Will Stewart, who literally runs these 20 or 30, nobody's actually ever met Will Stewart, they've never seen him in the flesh, runs 20 or 30 operations where he actually has a press pass actually to go into these various things. Nobody on any paper has ever seen him. This is, of course, a CIA front. And, of course, they put out all sorts of stories trying to debunk what is actually really going on. And what they try to do is muddy the waters so you have no idea, or at least you question what is going on. And in some cases, the really, really dense actually believe it. It is quite staggering that they get away with it, but they do because they have lots of money, lots of power, and they have people in positions that can actually make sure that you don't get to see what's going on. So we just thought we'd show you that just so you can have a little idea of what appears in your newspapers 9 times out of 10 now is planted stories. And ever since the governments have taken over the press, that is what you are seeing. So let's get into a couple of stories to do with everything that's happening before we get into Europe. The Russians are claiming, and with some justification, that Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant has been targeted by the UK and by Ukraine. Now, we have been talking about this for months and months and months and months. There was some documents intercepted that about 18 months ago we showed that showed that they were planning an operation to cause explosions on the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Now, as regards there is firm evidence, there is none. But of course, this hasn't stopped the planning. Before they have fired, shall we say, lots and lots of missiles at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. They are still doing it. Ukraine are still firing missiles and sending drones to hit the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. On occasion, they've turned around and lied to you and said that they put bombs on the roof. The IAEA get to inspect Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant quite often. Rafael Grossi's team, and on a couple of occasions, they've been fired upon themselves while they've been actually looking at the nuclear power plant. Of course, they have turned around and said that, of course, we have no idea who did the firing, but the Russians are in control of the plant. And of course, they're turning around and saying, we've no idea who's firing on it. Well, it's highly unlikely that the Russians are going to try and blow up their own nuclear power plant. So we thought we would show you that just so you know what's going on, because it is quite staggering that they would come out with this nonsense. Let's get into some videos then of exactly what's going on. This is from Pokrovsk. That didn't feature anybody getting killed, of course, because you can't do that because we want to, or we can only do that in the second half. Can we show you lots and lots of things that have gone on, including that? Let's have a little look at this. This is Ukrainian servicemen who decided to surrender.
Украинских военнослужащих, тех, которые, конечно, пожелают это сделать.
Романюк Юрий Львович,
Чернчук Геннадий Николаевич,
68-я бригада, 1-я рота, 1-й взвод, стрелок.
68-я бригада.
Попал в плен в Покровске.
Я в плен под Покровском.
Нас отправили на задачу, нам не объяснили, ну, на позиции не объяснили, какая у нас задача. Пришли туда 5 дней.
Что сдался?
Мы узнали, что попали в окружение.
Все заебало.
Вот. Нам не скидывали ни воду, ни еду.
Все заебало.
Выйти возможности не было, обстрел был сильный. Вот. Ну, когда поняли, что нас никто не выведет, не спасет, мы решили сдаться.
Товарищам что посоветуешь?
Да чтобы не умирали, ну, если бросили. Сдавайтесь по возможности.
So this is obviously Ukraine, Ukrainian soldiers. And as you can see, these Ukrainian soldiers are like old men, Nillis.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was quite surprised about their age. The second one, he looked like he'd been using some sort of drugs to try and keep him awake or something.
Yeah.
He had a very hollowed out face, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly
are the Ukrainians using, are they Ukrainian soldiers using methamphetamines and other things like?
Let's put it this way: methamphetamines has been used quite a lot in battle situations. There is no question that they are being used in this. Now, whether both sides are taking them, I don't know, but we do know from Ukrainian sources that that has happened on several occasions. Remember also that these people look like that because we've been without food for nearly 4 or 5 days. Mark Breckle.
Yeah, just like Warren was saying, they're absolutely exhausted. But yeah, the drugs have been taken up. I know in Belgorod and all those sort of places when the ACMAR Special Forces was clearing a lot of them out. But it's fatigue. They're shattered.
Yeah, there's no
like I say, Warren, you're a soldier. Would you like to sit in that constant shelling for about 3 or 4 weeks?
No, absolutely not. I mean, you'd be very, very lucky if you made it out of there. And I do mean very lucky because there is constant shelling and constant problems. Now, let's get into this because this pocket is now closed. And as you can see here, so the Russians have now managed to close this. So anybody that's left in Rivne, anybody that's left in Minorad, it's over. You've got nowhere to go. And of course, they try to break people in and break people out. We heard about this massive counterinsurgency that was happening. They were going to drop off all these soldiers and all the rest of it. And it was all going to be lovely and nothing was, Ukraine were going to be back on track and everything else. Well, we're going to show you that video after the first hour for the simple fact that, of course, it does show things that are not quite, not very nice whatsoever. But you can see from here where the green areas are or where the battles are taking place. Now, the last pocket of resistance is this block of high-rise flats here. This is sort of like an estate area, and these are high-rise flats here. There are over 1,800 men, as far as we know, still trapped in there. In Minorad, everybody that can escape has tried to escape through the fields in 6s and 7s and groups of 10, and some have surrendered and everything else. But as you can see, all these areas are now where the fighting is taking place, and very, very shortly. And the yellow area is where the Russians have now taken over. So they've literally closed that gap. And the people left in Rivne, in Minorad, are literally sitting ducks. And people are saying they should surrender, and they should, because it's only going to get worse. They are going to die if they stay there. And obviously, people are abandoning the tanks and everything else. But there are people trying to get out, still trying to get out, and they're just not going to be able to do it because literally as they come out, as they go in, they are being picked off left, right, and centre. There are drones that sit there waiting for you. Have a look at this. This one here. Now, as we can see, this drone has just flown to a location. Now, this is on time-lapse camera. So this drone has flown to a location. There are, they do it in shifts, these drone operators, and they are literally, as you can see from the time-lapse here, they're literally just sitting there waiting for something to come along. And this is a major problem because you look at this and you go, this can't be right, can it? They've got enough drones just to sit there. They have got enough drones just to sit there. And that's exactly what they do, and night and day, until something comes along that they can blow up. And it is incredible when you think about how they will just wait there. So day and night, these things are laying in wait for you to come along so that they can blow you up. That is something that is quite shocking and quite staggering. Robert first, then Nilis. Robert.
The drones must have pretty big batteries to be able to run for, say, 24 hours, 36, 48.
Yes, they do. There's another thing as well. I'm glad you mentioned that, Robert, because have a little look at this just before we carry on.
поле, русское поле, светит луна или падает снег. Счастьем и волею связан с тобою. Нет, не забыть тебя сердцу вовек.
Well done, Mark Onza. Yes, it is fiber optic cable, and also they leave charging batteries in various places as well, Robert. So if it starts to, they can literally land the drone on top and it will recharge. The Russians tend to think of everything, I'm afraid, but of course there you see, that's modern warfare now. That's a field full of fiber optic cable, Robert.
Wow, wow. Well, thank you, who that was. That's
You're more than welcome. Mark Onza spotted what it was quite straight away. Nilus.
Yeah, remember you told us on that road there's over 2,000 drones,
Yes.
and I think each operator can operate 15 or 20
each
drones?
operator can operate up to 15 drones at a time.
Yeah, so that's amazing. It must be a big juggling trick there.
Yeah, people don't realise how huge and how deadly the drone operations are. These people who you hear talking are just completely full of it, I'm afraid. They don't have the first idea of what they're talking about or what is there waiting for you. You know, these things will just wait for you all day, all night. They'll go off and get charged up, and then they'll just come back. And it is, if they're not hunting you, they're waiting for you. And that's the problem that we have. And it is a major problem, because you look at it and you just go, how bad is this thing going to get? It's going to get very bad. And of course, let's have a little look at this. This is in chance.
Wake me up.
There we go. So you're looking there at what, nigh on 30, 40 people in that building. One of those, I'll let you work out exactly what happened there. But if they don't surrender, they're going to die. There's no question that these guys are locked off. That, you know, we're hearing all sorts of nonsense from Zelensky. Here's the actual geolocation of where that strike was. And as you can see, Vovchansky's almost over. The Russians are now moving into, they're showing a grey area there, but the Russians are close to mopping that up. This is why there is so much pressure being placed on the Russians, because we are that close now to literally announcements from the Russians saying we've got it. It's now ours. Mark Breckle.
Yeah, they say, yeah, it's like a lunar landscape there. It's gone. There's nothing left. And they'll be moving on to the next settlement there. There's a place called Bilcha.
Yeah, but you're absolutely right. It's only going to get worse and worse and worse. And when you see, this is the thing, Mark, when you see the faces of the people and the state of these, when your morale gets so low that the will to fight has gone, then it's over. And it doesn't matter how much nonsense you come out with. And they do come out with nonsense. They're still coming out with all sorts of nonsense, thinking that it's going to be a different scenario to what it actually is. It isn't. They're either dying in great numbers, or the morale is so low they don't want to fight and they're surrendering. However, that doesn't stop, shall we say, people coming out with all sorts of nonsense. This person is probably the most completely out of touch so-called expert that we have in Great Britain. His name is Hamish de Breton Gordon. I always put the name Bennett on the end, as in Gordon Bennett. Could this guy be any more wide of the mark. Let's have a listen what this UK propagandist has to say.
I reckon actually to take that ground would take 4 years and 2 million more casualties. So what we've sort of seen around Petros and Kupiansk would sort of back that up. And maybe this is designed by the Ukrainians to have all this focus on this particular area, because it is absolutely, as you say, just chewing up Russian soldiers at an, you would have thought, an unsustainable rate.
Hello and welcome to Frontline with me, Philip Ingram. Now today, on day 1351 of Vladimir Putin's 10-day special military operation or full-scale invasion of Ukraine, we're very privileged to be talking once again to Hamish de Bretton-Gordon. Now Hamish, Director of Doctors Under Fire, former British Army Colonel, expert in CBRN. We might touch on something nuclear and biosecurity. And of course, your book, Chemical Warrior, is one that I'd encourage anyone, as we're coming up to Christmas. You know, it's a fantastic stocking filler for people to read. And you're an old friend of Frontline. Hamish, welcome back.
Well, thanks very much for having me on, Phil, and highlighting my book. And my next one on tanks is due out in a few months' time.
Well, we'll advertise that as well whenever it comes out, and I'll look forward to reading it. But Ukraine's interesting at the minute. There's a lot going on, but there's not been a lot reported really in the press. And if we started, we'll start at the tactical level and look at what's going on. There's a lot of reports coming out that Pokrovsk is just about to fall. Now, a lot of it's coming out of Russian channels, and therefore it could be the fact that they're deliberately misreporting this to try and have an effect, or you're genuinely, because of the pressure that there's been for 18 months, it is in its last legs. What do you think?
Well, I think you're absolutely right, Philip. Things are pretty opaque at the tactical level at the very front line. And as you say, Petros has been the focus of all the sort of close haul fighting. We understand 170,000 Russians were put into the area to try and attack. Of course, although we're talking about a tactical battle, it does have a strategic impact. If the Russians could break through there in Kupiansk, they are through that great defense, or a long way through that great defensive line, and then there's not a heck of a lot between that and Kyiv. So it is a tactical battle of strategic importance. As you say, most of the noise on social media at the moment is coming out of Russian channels, which is, very, very little of that is stuff that you can take as being the absolute truth. I think it is pretty clear that the Russians have made some ground, and the fact that General Budanov, the head of the Ukraine security services, was reportedly over there at the weekend to direct some particular operations. So the Ukrainians, I think, absolutely realise the importance and are doing some counter attacks, counter strokes, whatever you like, using some of their very, very best units. And that seems to be holding. We're hearing a lot of stories about infiltration by Russians in civilian clothes. This sort of clandestine type activity is really hugely challenging. It's difficult enough on the modern battlefield anyway, working out who your enemy is. But then when you're in civilian clothes, which we would throw the Geneva Convention at them and the.
Go on, Murphy.
Well, he's trying to hedge his bets there, isn't he? Yeah. What he's saying, he doesn't really. I don't think he really believes that at all. And what he doesn't want to do is look as though he was totally wrong when it all goes to basically rat shit. He doesn't want to look as though he's wrong, because nobody will believe him in the future, and he will lose his nice little earner.
Nobody does believe him anyway.
Well, no, but
I've yet to
for those that do,
I've yet to find him right
loses credibility.
Anything. Yeah, he doesn't have any. He's yet to be right about anything. But the reason, before we go to Mark Breckle and then Lee Williams, the reason we're talking about Hamish de Bretton-Gordon here is, of course, he is working there with Times Radio. Times Radio, of course, and Hamish de Bretton-Gordon quite often have something to do with an NGO called Chatham House, which, of course, you will know when we previously did the Matthew Waterfield expose. Matthew Waterfield talking at literally at Chatham House, and of course he's part of the Vasily Pozorov Ukraine smuggling ring that they were talking about that he uncovered. And of course, Chatham House are the ones that are being blamed. The NGO Chatham House are being blamed by the Russians, allegedly, for setting up the attacks on the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. Mark Breckle.
Well, this is it. That it's like me saying that Russia's recruiting babushkas and washing machines to fight Europe in it. It's absolute nonsense this guy comes out with.
He does.
He to actually lie so badly and actually write books about it as well.
Yes, yeah, he actually writes books about it. It's quite staggering, and you can buy them. You'll find them in the non-fiction section. If you do go and buy one, go and take it and put it in the fiction section. Lee Williams and then Sean
I was
Murphy.
going to say, I totally agree with what Sean and Mark said. It's a cover-up to, he knows what's happening, so why don't he just tell the truth? But obviously, and once he does, it'd be in the crap, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, just goes to show you that this Times Radio, this has proper money behind it. And all you have to do is go and check out who funds these things. It's so easy. Sean Murphy.
Well, I reckon when he brings that new book out, there will be lots of illustrations. But will they be old illustrations of tanks, especially in Ukraine? Because if he has any recent ones, he's going to have loads of photographs of burnt out hulks.
Yeah, and they've got absolutely, this is the trouble, they've got nowhere to go with it. And of course, we have to talk about what's happening with the youth as well. Thank you very much for that, Sean. So we're going to get into something to do with the youth here, because of course, the youth, everybody's turning around and going, well, can't be that bad, can it? It can be. Robert.
Sorry, I'm a bit late with this one, but the Bretton Gordon, he's the epitome of a methylated spirits drinker.
Yes.
He has that pallor, and also he just runs away with he doesn't really know what he's saying. Anyway, right, okay, sorry to go.
That's all right, not a problem. Mark Breckle.
You're going to tell me now they're bringing 17-year-old kids in, aren't you?
Well, the problem that we have here, of course, is that these kids are have done a runner. Now, everybody turns around and says, how great. It can't be that bad because they've let these people go left, right and centre. You know, they've let them go abroad. But they know exactly where they are. This is where we have a problem. And do not be surprised if you start seeing these people being thrown back. Now, if you think for 1 second that these people, that Ukraine aren't struggling, I've a bridge to sell you. Angelina Jolie, the other day, she went into Ukraine, obviously, went and sat with kids and everything else with a bulletproof vest on, just in case, of course, those dastardly Russians decided they were going to blow up a kindergarten of some sort. And of course, that's complete nonsense. But here's the real truth on this. Angelina Jolie's driver, okay, was literally grabbed. And this is the thing that they're doing with this conscription. They literally grabbed the driver and carted him off to check him out to see if he was available for service. And Angelina Jolie had to go and rescue him from the clutches of these people who are just grabbing anyone and throwing them on the front line. Now, his name is Dimitriou. And if you've ever seen the film of Life of Brian, there is a wonderful thing where, of course, the Judean Popular Front, or Judean People's Front, they're going to go and kidnap Pilate's wife. And of course, when they're saying about how they're going to carry out the raid, they turn around and say Reg is not going to take part in it, obviously, because he has a bad back. And very simply, this is the reason this guy is not at the front line. Apparently, he's great at showing you unarmed combat and all the rest of it. Angelina Jolie's driver, but he can't go to the front line because apparently he has a bad back. That is the genuine reason why he is not going to the front line. I kid you not. And of course, everybody's been trying to say that it wasn't true. And of course, Goncharenko, who is a member of the actual Ukrainian parliament, has come out and confirmed that Angelina Jolie's driver was arrested and they tried to throw him on the front line. So you couldn't make it up. And of course, let's hope that Dimitri's back gets better. When we come to the conscription that is going on, we have shown you time and time again, hour after hour of video of these people being grabbed and thrown onto the front line, and what happens to them, how bad the families react to this, and these people are just being lined up to die, and it is absolutely terrible and sickening to see what they call the conscription. Mark Breckle.
They caught another delivery guy in Dnipropetrovsk.
They did. They did. Well,
just never get a pizza in Ukraine again.
No, just in case you have no idea what Mark's talking about, let me expand on that a little for you. What happens is the Ukrainians, to capture people, the TCC, the conscription people, actually set up honey traps where they meet you, where they get really beautiful Ukrainian girls to meet men online. And we're going to meet people here. You're absolutely right, Kevin Ling, splitters. And the problem that they have, of course, they turn up to these dates and the TCC are waiting for them to grab them. And the same with pizza delivery and your delivery guys. These delivery guys, they order a pizza to come to an address. When they turn up with the food, they grab the delivery guy. In fact, one of the Ukrainian places that does pizza is almost out of business because it's had 27 delivery drivers that have been grabbed by the TCC. Now, we're laughing here, but it's no laughing matter because these people are thrown onto the front line. So what happens when they call this Ukraine bussification? Well, it's forced conscription, and it is the tip of the iceberg. Western media is largely ignoring that Kiev has to rip young men off the streets amid recruitment shortages and desertions. Now, bussification is a well understood term in Ukraine and refers to the process by which young men are detained against their will, often involving a violent struggle, and bundled into a vehicle, often a minibus, for onward transit to an army recruitment centre. Until recently, Ukraine's army recruiters picked easy targets. Yet, on October the 26th, the British Sun newspaper's defence editor, Jerome Starkey, wrote a harrowing report about his recent trip to the front line in Ukraine, during which he claimed his Ukrainian colleague was forcibly press-ganged into his country's armed services. Now, this case is striking for two reasons. First, the forced mobilisation of troops rarely reported by the Western mainstream media outlets. And second, that unlike most forced conscriptions, this event took place following the alleged commandeering of the Western journalist vehicle by three armed men who insisted they drive to a recruitment centre. There, Starkey reported, I saw at least a dozen glum men, mostly in their 40s and 50s, clutching sheafs of paper. They were called in and out of side rooms for rubber-stamped medicals to prove they were fit to fight. The process has drawn criticism after high-profile incidents where men have died before they even donned military uniforms. On October the 23rd, a Ukrainian Roman Sopin died from heavy blunt trauma to the head after he had been forcibly recruited. Ukrainian authorities claim that he fell, but his family are taking legal action. In August, a conscripted man, 36, died suddenly. Sounds like something else that happens, doesn't it? At a recruitment centre in Rivne, although the authorities claimed he died of natural causes. In June, 45-year-old Ukrainian Hungarian Joseph Sebastian died after he was beaten with iron bars following his forced conscription. The Ukrainian military denies this version of events. Of course they do. In August, a conscript died from injuries sustained after he jumped out of a moving vehicle that was transporting him to the recruitment centre. Look online and you'll find a trove of thousands of incidents, most of them filmed this year alone. You can find videos of a recruitment officer chasing a man and shooting at him, a man being choked to death on the street with a recruiter's knee on his neck. Not one word about George Floyd there. many including family members or friends fighting desperately to prevent their loved one being taken. And if the video was of this nature on the systemic scale was shared in the United States or the United Kingdom, members of the public would express serious concerns. And indeed, we've been showing you this for ages and ages. Yet the Western media, mainstream media, remains largely silent. And I find it incredibly difficult to understand why. There is little evidence that these efforts are having the desired effect. And of course, they're making steps to modernize its army recruitment to make enlistment more appealing to men under the age of 25. And a year after bussification only appears to be getting worse. It literally is not being reported. Now, the Washington-based Institute for the Study of War, which is run by Victoria Newland's sister-in-law, on which Grok takes its, shall we say, its biased reporting for on X, which, of course, once again is linked to the CIA and the Kagan family, often reports on Russia's force mobilization efforts, but not on the dark and desperate aspects that lead to Ukrainian bussifications. You won't find reports on this in the New York Times, as it conflicts with the narrative. With support from the West, Ukraine can turn the war around. It leans instead on stories like Ukraine points for drone kills game, or the designer who cut the all-black suit that Zelensky now wears. Meanwhile, Washington Post is softly banging the drum to recruit 18 and 17-year-olds in Ukraine, despite this being a toxic political issue in Ukraine. This is because bussification is the tip of the iceberg. If the Ukrainians are finding it difficult to encourage young men to join the army voluntarily, then it is proving even harder to make them stay without deserting. In January 2025, it was reported that 1,700 troops of the Anna of Kiev 155th Mechanized Brigade, trained in France and equipped with self-propelled howitzers, all went AWOL, 50 of them while they were still in France. In June 2024, a Ukrainian deserter was shot dead by a border guard while trying to cross into Moldova. In the first half of 2025, over 110,000 desertion cases were reported in Ukraine. In 2024, Ukrainian prosecutors initiated over 89,000 proceedings related to desertion and unauthorized abandonment of units, a figure 3.5 times greater than in 2023. More than 20% of Ukraine's 1 million strong army have jumped the fence in the past 4 years, and the numbers are rising all the time. Desertions appear in part driven by ever greater shortages of infantry troops at the front line, which means soldiers barely get rested or recuperation breaks. A lack of sufficient equipment is often blamed. And of course, the widespread and rising desertion rates from Ukraine's armed forces only seem to provoke more violent recruitment practices and then civilian protests. On October the 30th, in Odessa, a group of demonstrators against a man's forced detention overturned the minibus. Now, the growth of bussification, as they call it, or press ganging, as it should be rightly called, a rising desertions also track with a growth in support among ordinary Ukrainians for the war to end. Support for a negotiated end to the war has risen from 27% in 2023 to 69% in 2025. Likewise, support for Ukraine to keep fighting until it wins a war, any war, a wholly deluded proposition, has dropped from 67% to 22% over the same period. President Zelensky, of course, claims that Ukraine's military predicament is linked to a lack of guns, not a lack of people. He's quiet on whether he will have the troops or political support to do so. But for now, the message seems to be, don't mention the press gangs, in detention killings, deserters and waning public support. Just give me more money. And Ian Proud is the author of a report on that very thing. And it's well worth a read when it comes to the bussification or press ganging of these poor so-and-sos that get killed on the front line. Then you get the ones that are escaping, like over to Switzerland and everything else. Poland are up in arms because there is treatment being given to Ukrainian soldiers who have got these sort of tattoos on their arms. Now, if you know anything about the Azov battalion, you know anything about the fundraising from NATO, you know anything about certain members of the EU who have grandfathers who have shall we say, a history or certainly a checkered past with anything like this. Very, very simply, giving medical treatment to these people when they have yet to apologise for the Volyn massacre, which was carried out by Bandera's, shall we say, Galatians. Mark Breckle?
There was a Polish boy, he dressed up in a Russian uniform to scare all the Ukrainian kids for Halloween. It was on his social media. I found that quite funny as well.
Yes, he did. He decided he would dress up, and then, of course, he turned up at this Halloween party dressed as a Russian soldier and frightened everybody to death. That the one you mean?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Yes, and of course, everybody he found it, and his mates found it quite funny. But the poor kids went completely white, and quite rightly so. But the problem is with these sort of things, and we are going to see more and more of this as we go along, is these poor guys that are getting bussed in and getting beaten up and everything else. It's only going to get worse. And of course, the ones that have already escaped are just going to be thrown back. Now, they are fleeing to Switzerland in huge numbers. And in fact, the Germans are reporting on this, that the Ukrainians are fleeing to Switzerland in huge numbers because it is the least likely to repatriate them. Now, remember, we were talking before about whether they were going to get repatriated, whether these people were going to get grabbed off the street. And of course, everybody went, no, no, no. Well, it's true. After Ukraine men aged 18 to 22 were allowed to leave the country again at the end of August, they flooded in there. In 2 months, over 1,000 young men applied for asylum there. Politicians in this Alpine country increasingly accused them of desertion and wanting to mobilize them back. However, representatives of the local Ukrainian community are quick to justify their compatriots. The West must know that hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians are risking their lives now, and only a few are fleeing, and clarify they are leaving the country to survive, not to evade military service. Really. So what they're saying is they're equating it, they're fleeing to survive. Survive from what? Because if they're not fleeing from military service, they've got nothing to worry about, have they? Just something you might want to think about. And of course, it is complete and utter nonsense. And we know full well that these poor so-and-sos are being lined up for butchery. And even parents with kids as young as 16, 15, 16 years of age are sending their children abroad so that their kids are not grabbed and thrown onto the front line. This happens all the time. And people that say that it doesn't are lying through their teeth. And of course, people will turn around and go, oh, it can't be right, can't be right. It is right. We know that it's happening and that this sort of thing is going on. As we speak, there's about 100 a day that are being grabbed off the streets. Mark Breckle.
Well, again, in Russia, there's guys that are actually joining up, especially to defend the motherland, because they need troops just to defend, like, airports, a bit like, I suppose, like Home Guard, because obviously the drone attacks. So there's still a lot of Russians that are still volunteering quite happily to defend the motherland. But like you're saying with Ukraine, they're running. They don't want to fight the Russians.
Yeah,
and it's only the West that's pushing this.
The Russians can mobilize absolutely tons and tons of people. They don't have a major problem with it at all, because these people just go on and on and on. Robert?
No, sorry, I've left my...
Okay, I'll just mute you off. No hard feelings. We'll just mute Robert there. We've got, I suppose, to talk about the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant in a bit more detail. Now, the Russians have come out and have accused, without any question whatsoever. As you can see here, the Press Bureau of the Foreign Intelligence Service of the Russian Federation reports that, according to information received by the SVR, European NATO members are calling on the Kiev regime to find ways to urgently change the negative course of the Ukraine conflict. There we are. For Westerners and its perception to the public in the West. So when I tell you that they waste 32 men to go and plant a flag so they can take a picture of it to use for propaganda to get more money for military equipment. Believe me, okay? It's perception by the public in the West. The most effective way to achieve this goal, it is proposed to carry out a major sabotage with victims among Ukrainians and residents of EU countries, like the tragedy of the Malaysian flight MH17 in 2014. In this regard, the option of organised sabotage at the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant with the melting of its core of its nuclear reactors is being considered. The influential British NGO Chatham House has already calculated the consequences of such an accident. Data from specifically conducted computer modelling showed that taking into account the wind rise and the movement of air masses, residents of Kiev-controlled areas and citizens of EU countries near the Ukrainian western border will find themselves in the area of the spread of radioactive particles. The think tank considered the most difficult moment in implementing such an idea is to be how to hold Russia responsible for the disaster. In this regard, Chatham House intends to prepare arguments in advance in case of any development of events. It's planned to provide media coverage of the situation in such a way the Western public unequivocally takes the side of Kiev on the issue of determining the culprit in the incident. And this happens all the time. We see Russia getting blamed for all sorts of things. Look at the drone attacks on those two poor, unfortunate people. Straight away, we had the Sun, Will Stewart, everybody trying to turn that around when we know full well that the Ukrainians carried it out. Now, we have to state once again that even on issues of nuclear safety that are so important to the general public, totalitarian liberal elites act according to long established inhumane patterns. The collective West is once again ready to deceive and even kill Ukrainians and citizens of Western states in order to attribute the crimes of the Kiev regime to Russia and justify its Russophobic policies and efforts to foment. That is what the Russians are turning around and saying. Now, you don't have to believe it, of course, but of course you do, shall we say, get lots and lots of people turning around and saying, this is true, this is happening. Now, if you ever wanted some idea of the brainless stupidity of the people that we have in charge of, shall we say, the war that is going on, Lithuania have just given 33 personnel carriers to Ukraine. Sounds like a jolly good idea, doesn't it? Except for the fact that, of course, these 33 personnel carriers will be blown up in no time. Now, that's at a total cost, I believe, of over $6.25 million. Won't cost that much in drones to blow them up, I can assure you of that. And, of course, the nonsense that they're coming out with there, saying that this is going to make a difference in the war. It will make no difference at all, just so you know, when everybody's talking about this, how much nonsense they're coming out with. And, of course, the chief protagonist, shall we say, is, of course, Ruti Fruity, or Mark Rutte, the head of NATO, saying that everybody's got to be prepared for war. This is the guy who said that Ukraine were advancing. They were just advancing in the wrong direction. You remember that. Now, a little something from our wonderful friend, which will, of course, go down really, really well with everybody, is that Mark Rutte has been given basically Germany's version of the Nobel Peace Prize. Now, this comes from our, as I say, from our wonderful friends, DG Geopolitics, Sarah Bills and her gang there. The Westphalian Peace Prize for NATO and Ruti Fruity. Well, the Nobel Peace Prize to vanilla quizzling opposition figure who wants her country militarily regime changed and sold off to the empire at less than a cent a dollar. The General Westphalian Prize, shall we say, faced a challenge, and they delivered it by awarding it to NATO and its General Secretary, Mark Rutte. Now, the jury is comprised of titans of German political, economic, and NGO elites, such as Chancellor Friedrich Merz is on the board, North Rhine-Westphalia's Prime Minister, Henrik Wurst, German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier, Sem Oderzamar from the Greens, George Friedrich, the Prince of Prussia, head of the House of Hohenzollern, Reinhard Zinken, the CEO of Miele, and of course Jens Wiedemann, the former president of the Deutsche Bundesbank. Now, awarding a peace prize to a military alliance might seem surprising at first glance. However, this association of European and North American states has been dedicated to defence and peacekeeping and defending military attacks since 1949. Explained the chairman for this. The US and the UK deep state pulls a funny Nobel Prize winner in giving it to Machado, and of course the Germans then turn around and go, hold my beer, I've got an even better one for you. So they've actually given this prize, would you believe, to Rutte and NATO. So let's get into a bit of Rutte and NATO and the European Union. We know what's going to happen, don't we? Because they want to pinch all the frozen assets and the money. Well, there's a bit of a problem. This gentleman here, he's been arrested for corruption. His name is Didier Reinders. He's been arrested for corruption, and he's the man in charge, should we say, of making sure that everything is okay when it comes to all the money that they might be using or they might have. So this guy straight away has been arrested. The European Commissioner for overseeing the frozen Russian assets has been charged with money laundering. He supervised, as I say, Russian assets worth billions. He has been, on October the 16th, the judge did not believe his story about selling paintings and lottery winnings over 10 years. The former European Commissioner deposited over 700,000 euros in cash into a bank and cycled another 200,000 euros through the lottery. His wife was not touched. His lawyer insists he's innocent. The case is ongoing since 2023, yet you've never heard of it till today. Interrogations, and now he faces up to 5 years in prison. The irony of it cannot be lost on you, I don't think. The man who is the main supposedly anti-money laundering fighter is now himself under investigation and highly likely to go to jail. That just tells you everything you need to know about this guy. And of course, where we're going with this, because it's just going to get worse. Germany and the IMF and Europe and everybody. Europe is cutting the quotas and the IMF is setting the conditions. Ukraine is still asking for money, while Kiev is looking for money for war and heating. Europeans are not rushing to open their wallets. And in fact, Ukrainian officials are complaining about low salaries. So let's check the facts, shall we? This is, would you believe, all the money that they are laundering? The Ukrainian officials and the parliamentary officials are complaining about low money. Now, the IMF threatened to stop financing Ukraine if the EU does not confiscate Russian gold and foreign currency reserves. Without this decision, Kiev risks running out of funds for the army and debt servicing. So Zelensky has proposed a new scheme to the European. One drone for the price of two. Allies pay for 2 units but receive only one, with Ukraine keeping the other. Experts have criticised this idea as being corrupt and economically pointless. This is how bad it is. The European Union has revised its quotas for Ukraine agricultural products, but there are no real benefits for Ukraine. Grain remains restricted, and the removed quotas apply to goods that Ukraine barely exports. Almost half of Ukraine officials consider their salaries to be unfairly low, even though the top government officials earn more than 100,000 hryvnias per month. Zelensky's salary reform has completely failed. Amid the economic crisis, of course, the government is discussing the construction of vegetable storage facilities and the testing of SpaceX Starlink technology in a country where even elevator mechanics have been mobilized to join the army. It is quite staggering. And if you enjoyed that little bit, we've got lots more for you to come in the second half. Mark Breckle.
Yeah, just a quick one. His industry must be down the toilet, because the biggest one was fertilizer. That can't be carried on now. His farming's obviously, because there's so much battle damage to fields and nothing's really getting out of Odessa. His mining's gone, because obviously the Donbass is near enough taken now. Steel industry's gone. There can't be and the only thing really he's got left is tourism, and there's not many people actually flying into Kiev because you can't get a plane into there. So what's left, Warren? There can't be much left of Ukraine to make any money.
There's not a lot left, is there? That's the problem. And of course, it's
no.
Big issue. And Andrew says drug dealing. Yes, highly likely. Well, that's the end of the first hour. We will in the second hour be showing you stuff that we can't show you in the first hour because, as you've seen already, we get kicked off of X. So you've got a minute and a half. Literally, you've got a minute and a half to go and make a coffee and come and join us for the second half, where we will be showing you some fairly awful stuff.